Hi, everyone. Welcome to Joist AI's December Learning Loft webinar. We have been graced again with Christopher Penn here to do a special session, brand new session, even for Chris, AI Wrapped 2025 edition. So, kind of a play on Spotify. I'm looking back at all of our top 2025 trends and essentially what we should be looking for in 2026. I'm Amanda Seeley. I'm happy to be here. Real quick, some housekeeping items. We have chat open for everybody. So go ahead and ask your questions to myself about Joist AI, to Chris about the presentation. Ask any questions away. We also have Nick Cook with Joist AI on the side, who's going to be helping us answer some questions. If you have more formal questions that you want to make sure do not get lost in the minutia and chat, definitely throw them into Q&A. We'll be sure to get to those. We will be sending out the recording and the slides and everything post webinar, so look for those. I will also throw into chat the link to our YouTube playlist, which is Learning Loft, where we have all of our previous recordings in case there's any that you missed that you want to catch up on. As well as next month, so January, Rohan and Nikel from Joist AI will essentially be doing more of a Joist AI look back, roadmap to the future, that type of thing. So I'll throw that link in chat as well. Make sure not to miss that. That'll be some exciting stuff. We have a lot of new features, a lot of things in the pipeline that we want to be showing everybody. So without further ado,
Well,
Christopher, I'm gonna,
Amanda, I do want to say, do you want to talk real quick about because Joyce had a big year this year. It was a big year, a lot of new features stuff. Are there any one or two things that you want to highlight from the year that you think folks should know or remember?
That is hard to say because I would say our customers that started in January, February versus our customers that started a month ago, it is an entirely different product. One of the qualities of Joist AI is that we try our damnedest to start to essentially implement anything that is new and sexy, and we need to have it to kind of stay at the forefront of the industry, to stay at the forefront of the product. We've reinvented Joist AI like 4 times since its beginning, 3 years ago, because we are very much committed to making sure that we stay on top of things. I would say our workspaces tool. I'm sure most of our guests that are on the webinar today have used our workspaces tool, but that's where we can essentially start to auto draft, build the proposals, have team collaboration, really do all of that in one place. I would say that's probably been the biggest thing that we've released this year that we've worked exceedingly hard on, that all of our clients have essentially, they've given their input. That's the direction they wanted us to have. A year ago, we asked the question to our customers, if Joist AI could do one thing for you, what would it be? And it's like, draft me a proposal. And we said, all right, don't know how we're going to do it, but we're going to do it. And by golly, we did it. So that's pretty special. So, but more of those types of items to come in 2026 that Rohan and Nikel will be showing you. So make sure to stay tuned. Thank you,
All
Chris.
right,
Appreciate
excellent.
that.
No problem. So let's talk about what happened broadly in 2025. It was a big year. This is from Wharton Business School. This came out in October. This is a look at how AI has changed. And what they've been studying is they've been doing a longitudinal study over the last 3 years. As of this year, 82% of the companies and the people that they survey, and these are large enterprises, are now using Gen AI at least weekly and 46% daily. But the one thing that I think really stands up more than anything is 3 out of 4 leaders are seeing positive ROI on generative AI. 3 out of 4 leaders are seeing positive returns. Now, this is again, remember, this is a multi-year study, longitudinal, because there were a lot of other studies that came out during the year. People saying, "Oh, I didn't see any ROI in AI," and like, yeah, your study was 6 months long. You can't even get a coffee maker provision from procurement in 6 months. So the fact that Wharton has gone through this, and now what they're saying that in the next year ahead is positive ROI and payback in 2 to 3 years uh, as AI technology continues to improve and as companies get more value out of it. And a third of the budget is going to internal R&D, people trying to build their own things. I will say, just from our own experience, this is where we spend most of our time at my company, Trust Insights, because there's so much new stuff happening. The number one use case in 2025 for AI, surprisingly to me, is therapy and companionship. Therapy and companionship, 70 some odd percent of users are using it for that purpose, followed by organizing their lives, finding purpose, enhanced learning, generating code and ideas, fun, improving code, creativity, and healthier living. So a lot of more specific use cases. What this tells me, and we can debate, offline in other places whether or not it's a good idea to use these tools for therapy and companionship, is that it tells me they are sophisticated enough now that people are okay having those conversations with a machine that they previously might have had with a human being. So this is a big behavioral change in how human beings interact with these machines. It's no longer just write me a blog post about BIM software. It's now, I want to talk to this thing and get advice from it, get companionship from it, organize my life with it, find purpose. This is a pretty remarkable change. In a study that came out of Stanford September this year, this one was really shocking. Generative AI tools, when properly prompted and configured, can correctly simulate consumer choices, yeah, as you know, in a survey with a 90% accuracy rate. They can correctly simulate a customer's decisions. Now, this is B2C, but they can correctly simulate a customer's choices not with 90% accuracy, which again is a stunning number, because if you think about how many companies spend how much money on things like focus groups and surveys and stuff, and AI can correctly behave like the customer 90% of the time, that's a huge leap. So some of the use cases, and we talked about this in the second episode in this that I did in this series on building ideal customer profiles. If you've not already done that, go back and watch that episode. Amanda just put the link in chat. Go back and watch that episode, because your ideal customer profile, you can now bring this to a stakeholder and say, if we use our ideal customer profiles correctly, they'll probably be about 90% accurate with what a real customer would do. And that allows you to have a conversation with a synthetic customer any time of day or night. It allows you to test things. One thing that I built this year just for fun was a piece of code that takes an ideal customer profile and scans every page on your website and says, how well does this page answer the customer's needs? And does it answer the questions about pricing? Does it answer the questions, does it speak their language? And I know we can feel confident in that now, because we have, peer-reviewed academic research saying, yeah, it's about 90% accurate for what a real customer would say. This was the year, 2025 was the year AI models became smarter than PhDs in their field of expertise. If we look back at this year, the artificial analysis intelligence scale, which is where this chart is from, is an amalgamation of different tests for AI. A human being, you can see the dotted red line there. A human being scores about a 65% in their field of expertise, scores about a 25% outside their field of expertise. So you can see at the very beginning of the year, almost every AI model was pretty much at face rolling idiot in terms of being able to pass these intelligence tests. It scored no better than random chance on most of them, which is what most of us would score on these tests. By this week, almost all the model families now exceed human capabilities. This is a really important point to reinforce. The machines are smarter than any one given human. The machines are smarter than any one given human. Can they represent, will they deliver those same results? Not necessarily, because again, they have to be skillfully used, but the model's latent knowledge, and this is across families, this is across different AI companies in different countries, across the board. Machines are now smarter than any one given human. I have no idea what that was. Oh, uh, two of my slides did. This slide did not show up for some reason. Let's try that again. There we go. This is where we started the year. We started the year. This is an exam called Humanity's Last Exam, which is a phenomenally difficult exam. It is not multiple choice. It is open ended, and you read some of the questions and go, I don't know. I would score a 0 on it. Um, Look at where the year started. GPT-4o from OpenAI, which was the model that ChatGPT was using, scored a 5% on this exam. Now, bear in mind, again, human outside their domain of expertise, 0 is what you're going to score. By the end of the year, ChatGPT's knowledge, its ability to pass this very difficult exam, quadrupled. Look at Claude. Claude started the year at a 3.1%, ended the year at a 28%. So that is almost a 9x, a little more than a 9x improvement. Gemini started the year at 6.8%, ended the year at 37%. Right. So we're talking 6x improvement. And then DeepSeek, the Chinese model maker, started the year at 5%, ended at 22%, 4x improvement. So the models have gotten multiples smarter just within this year. It's tough to keep track of because there's so much noise and so much of everything. But when we just take a step back and look at how much they've progressed on the most difficult exam, it's really stunning. It's honestly shocking. These are a couple of examples of humanity's last exam questions. You can see here it says, I'm providing standardized biblical Hebrew text from Biblia Hebraica Stuttgartensia. You have to distinguish between closed and open syllables. Like, I'm going to score a 0 because I have the fog. I can't even read Hebrew, much less understand like the Tiberian tradition of transcription or Karaite transcript manuscripts. No idea. There's another one for paracyclic cascades. I don't even know how to write the answer to this. So this gives you an idea of what the kinds of questions are on this exam that it's testing for. So let's go through the year and see what were the big announcements. So in January, the company DeepSeek, the Chinese company, released their reasoning model, R1, which was the first one that told you what it was thinking. OpenAI released its operator agent software that allows you to browse things, and humanity's last exam came out. R1 shocked the world because the company DeepSeek did it on a fraction of the budget and a fraction of the compute that Western AI labs had. Silicon Valley lost $1 trillion worth of stock value that day. And it set off a massive race around the planet for every country to be starting to build their own AI programs. And this is a good thing. More competition is better. DeepSeek also has the relatively at the time relatively unique trait of just giving it away. So if you had the hardware to run it, which costs about $50,000, but if you had the hardware to run it, you could run it on your own and have the data be completely private. So that's so that the local AI models really gave a jumpstart to the field. In February, Google Gemini 2.0 came out, which is difficult to think about because it doesn't seem like that long ago. Claude came out with a new version of its coding tools, its coding model, and ChatGPT delivered deep research. I have forgotten what life was like before deep research because within weeks, Google brought it into the Gemini product. Perplexity brought it into their product. Everybody and their cousin has deep research now. It was one of the most useful things. But at the beginning of the year, it didn't exist. And now it's become a mainstay. If you had a chance to, again, watch the previous episodes in this series, doing deep research on who your ideal customer is, on who your competitors are, and and pretty much any task you can imagine that requires research, these tools can do it, and they can do it incredibly well. They're extremely capable of it. That was only February. In March, Google revved Gemini and came up with the best version of it by then. The first in chat image generator, GPT-4o, came in from OpenAI. This is the first time in years that you could ask the AI to make an image and then say, hey, look at the image you made and make these changes. Previously, the models were disconnected. They could not even see what they made. And in March of this year, that the first time that became available. Now, of course, there's so many different competing models and standards, but that was the first time that we got the ability to tell an AI, hey, I told you to put 4 people in this Prius instead of 3. Please fix your image. And the French company Mistral debuted their OCR model, which is the smallest, fastest, cheapest, lightest model for doing optical character recognition at that time. April showers brought us Meta's Llama 4, which was probably the most disastrous release that an AI company has ever done. Llama 4 had outrageous expectations and delivered on none of them. So much so that Mark Zuckerberg pretty much fired everybody and restaffed and started doing crazy things like offering people billion-dollar salaries to work for Meta to undo that mess. Since then, we haven't really heard a whole lot from them. So we don't know what they're working on. OpenAI released GPT-4o1, which also was a flop. That model did not perform particularly well and cost enormous amounts of money. So April really had a lot of April showers. Chinese company Wan released their video generation model, which was state of the art at the time and also free for people to use if they wanted to run it on their own hardware. In May, uh, Anthropic released new versions of its Claude tools, but Google made the big splash in May with Google's VO3 and Imagen 4 models. VO3 in particular became the best video generation model on the market. Its ability to do things with very high fidelity, to make relatively few mistakes. Same for Imagen 4. The VO3 still is one of the best video generation models. So if you have been interested in doing things like visualizing a construction site with a drone flyover, it's very capable of doing that. And the French company Mistral released their model in May. So May flowers. June brought us new releases from Mistral. Apple Intelligence debuted, and that was kind of a flop. That came out on iPhones and didn't really land because it Apple Apple's strategic principles about making things easy to use and safe really prohibit a lot of Gen AI use cases because generative AI does things like hallucinate. And Apple has a very low tolerance for mistakes that ruin the customer experience. And so you did not see Apple Intelligence do very much, and you still haven't, even at the end of 2025. And it's doubtful whether or not it actually will. They are rumored to be in discussions with Google to use Gemini on the iPhone instead of trying to roll their own. Meta released its second world model, which is a completely different topic for another time, called JEPA 2, that was academically well received, but has not had any production usefulness. July brought us Alibaba's Qwen 3, one of the best coding models on the planet, also completely free and small enough that you can run it on a laptop without needing the cloud. If you are on a very tight budget and you have a good computer, you have a computer that can play really nice video games, Qwen 3 Coder can do a substantial amount of coding for you. We also saw a voice recognition model from Mistral, and xAI, Elon Musk's shop, released Grok 4. August brought us the big release, the model everyone was waiting for, OpenAI's GPT-5 and a new brain for ChatGPT. Reactions were muted because it behaves very differently than anything else that anyone has seen before. And Google brought a much missed but very interesting model called Genie 3 that allows you to generate a virtual world, and walk through it. I am constantly surprised at the number of folks in the AEC space who've never even heard of this model, much less what it could do for things like visualizing builds. September brought us OpenAI's Sora 2, the video generation model that immediately got OpenAI into a whole bunch of copyright lawsuits because it was replicating copyrighted and doing just intellectual property infringement left and right. Claude and Alibaba both released new versions of their models. Sonnet 4.5 is the best cloud-based coding model still. It's still the best balance of performance and cost. October, Halloween brought us OpenAI's much vaunted Atlas web browser, which you should never, ever, ever use under any circumstances at work, because everything that you browse gets sent to OpenAI. So if you're browsing, say, your company's CRM, yeah, all your CRM data is leaking out through that browser. So please never use that at work. October also brought us the robot Figure 03, the first robot that production wise is being tested essentially as a robot butler in people's houses. But Figure 03 is starting to be looked at for industrial use. In construction, you'll see things like this in things like skyscraper building, because it's a lot less dangerous for a robot to be, 78 stories up doing welding and rivets and stuff than it is for a human. And if it falls off, oh well, by another robot. November brought us a a big change from Google, the Nano Banana Pro model. This is the very, very, very best image generation model that exists now, to the point where it creates things that defy belief in terms of reality, in terms of how real something does or does not look. Anthropic brought us Opus 4.5, which is the best overall, smartest coding model. And Moonshot AI, a Chinese company, brought us the top performing thinking model, Kimi K2 Thinking. And this month, which we're only 10 days into, we have a new version of DeepSeek, a new version of Mistral, and Google releasing Workspace Studio, which is going to be the agent builder that anyone in the Google ecosystem is really going to want to get on board to, and it has sort of set the bar for what AI agents should be. I would expect that the folks in Redmond are desperately trying to figure out how to make something like it for Copilot, because otherwise Google is going to eat their lunch. Now, it wasn't all sunshine and roses this year. There's a lot of other things that happen in the AI space that impact a lot of different industries. Right now on Spotify, there's Walk My Walk and Living on Borrowed Time are topping Spotify's charts. These are AI made songs. They are not human made songs. And it turns out the company Deezer did a blind controlled test. 97% of people cannot tell the difference between a piece of music generated by a robot, by a machine, versus by a human. 97% of people cannot tell the difference when they're given just headphones and told to listen to a song and judge whether it is or is not AI. This is a part of a bigger theme that machines are getting so capable now that their output quality is getting indistinguishable from humans. Actress Tilly Norwood does not exist, but was created and is the first AI avatar to be starting to work with Hollywood studios for casting in productions. This is the chart that came out in August. This is from Stanford about the impact of AI on hiring and employment. And what you see is that for knowledge work jobs, generative AI is having a substantial negative impact on employment at the bottom levels of company, the most junior roles. We see for software developers and customer service, software developers in particular, we see a 20% decline in overall headcount. So not just reduction in hiring, but actual 20% fewer people at a junior level being hired because of generative AI in software development. You see a smaller decline, about 10% in customer service. And when you look across industries like marketing and sales, you can see there that it's had a substantial negative impacts. Other professions that are more resistant, in-person roles like health aides, stock clerks, and things, you don't see those effects. But knowledge work jobs are being substantially impacted, and the brunt of the impact is happening on the people in the most junior roles, because they often have the tasks that are easiest to automate. They are easiest for AI to pick up. They're doing stuff that is almost all templated. And if I've been saying now for 10 years, if you do it with a template today, a machine can do it without you tomorrow. So this is something to be aware about. This is happening in companies. Now there's a strategic impact to this, and that is that if you have fewer junior staff, you have a smaller pool of people to promote from, to become senior staff or managers or directors and executives. Eventually, there will be knock-on effects to this for knowledge work jobs. The index that we all should be paying attention to as we go into next year is from the Center for AI Safety. This is called an index called RLI, remote. It's basically a remote labor index. Remote labor index represents projects that are remote labor that you hire remote workers for, game development, product design, architecture, data analysis, video animation. These projects are hundreds of hours each, tens of thousands of dollars in economic value. And you can see a couple of examples like here's a blueprint, do a rendering from this blueprint. Right now, the previous generation of models, Grok 4, GPT-5, Gemini 2.5, so the previous version of these models, all score around 2% completion, which you might want to pull out a Wiggum from The Simpsons and go, ha ha, except think about what that means. If a machine can deliver commercially acceptable output, then that's the benchmark here. The benchmark is, would it meet the same quality as commissioned work from a human? Could your business withstand a 2% loss of revenue? Could your business withstand a 2% loss in new business? This benchmark right now, it shows that machines are not able to do soup to nuts, a complex project like here's a blueprint, render the building from it. They can only do about 2% of the time. That's the previous generation of models. And what we saw this year, remember on humanity's last exam, going from 5% to 30%, from 6% to 37%. Within a year, these models got to 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times smarter. So this index, if this were to happen to architecture, to construction, to engineering, what would it look like if 5% of the work that you got paid a lot of money for as a firm went away, or 10%, or 20%? What does that look like in 2026? This is all being done not just by AI models themselves, but also within agents. So keep that in mind, because that is going to be the watchword for 2026. Agents. We are used to agents. We know what agents are. They're things that go off and do things for us, right? When you hire a real estate agent, they go off and they either help sell your house or help you buy your house. When you hire a travel agent, for like the 5 people left on the planet that use them, that person goes off and builds your itinerary and does all your bookings and all these things. When you have a customer service agent, they're supposed to help you resolve your problems. So we know what agents are. Agents are entities, human or otherwise, that do a bunch of tasks with us. We give it a job, it does a bunch of tasks, and it comes back and says, here's the thing I did for you. This is where AI's future is going very rapidly. I would love to say it's the future, but it's actually now. However, it's unevenly adopted. And if we were to think about how does this fit in, when you use today's AI tools like a Chat GPT or a Gemini or a Claude, and you're prompting it, you're basically kind of talking directly to the engine of AI, right? You're talking to the model directly. What's not there is the rest of the car. And that's what the agent is. The agent is the rest of the car, connects AI and the AI model to other parts of the system. So an agent that talks to your CRM may grab an opportunity out of your CRM. You may have given it knowledge of your ideal customer profile, and it may be able to score the opportunity. What is the probability this is likely to close based on other data it has access from your CRM, and it can pass the data back to your CRM. Only some part of that is actually AI. The rest of it is plumbing to connect it from one part of the system to the next. As we get into the new year, the ability for us to deploy and use agents is going to be how we succeed with AI. Because as I'm sure many of you have experienced this year, tools like ChatGPT are fantastic. They're great. They allow for a lot of power. However, there's still an agent operating, and that agent is you. And so it may not be saving you as much time or as much effort as you would hope, because you still have to be there. As the tools advance, more and more of the agent work will be done by the machines. And we will basically be giving like a brief, like a creative brief that you would give to a creative director. We give the brief to the machine, and then the agents go off and do the thing. So let's talk about how we get there, how you get there. Right now, there's three levels of AI. They correspond to three levels of product market fit: done by you, done with you, and done for you. Done by you is what you're doing right now with ChatGPT. You're prompting it, and you may have good workflows. I copy and paste this prompt, I do this, I get this, I copy and paste this out, and it's probably working for you. And hopefully, if you've watched the first two episodes in the series that I did with you, you're getting good success. The next level is when you start building, I would call them mini apps. They're not agents, but they're capable. They do some of the stuff for you. And these would be things like gems and GPTs and Claude projects. And at the highest level is when the machine just does stuff for you, and that is an agent. So how do we get there? Well, first, some very quick recap if you haven't been to the last two series. When it comes to prompting, the more relevant specific words you use in your prompts, the better your prompts will perform. Jargon is your friend. If you are prompting with short, brief, unclear prompts that would confuse an intern, think about how you would delegate that task to that intern and be much more clear and specific. Right. So you would never say to the intern, "Oh yeah, take this RFP and respond to it." Right. That would be a recipe for disaster. You would use something like Joist AI to say, here's the RFP now with all of the knowledge that's built into the system and our background and our past successful proposals and all of the data. Now let's build the RFP response. How long can a prompt be? Today's models can handle up to 800,000 words. And by the way, this is going to change a lot in 2026. Last week in Mexico City, there was a conference called NeurIPS, which is a super nerdy AI conference, an AI machine learning conference. Pretty much, in addition to spending money, you kind of have to have at least one PhD if you want to understand what's going on. I read the papers that come out of NeurIPS, and I understand a third of what's in any given paper because they're so dense. However, three or four of the papers that came out that were award winning from the event, because there were 5,800 papers submitted, and five of them won awards. Dramatic changes. If you change the underlying math in some of these models, their performance and the ability to remember over very large bodies of text is going to be substantially better. There's one example that they showed where previously a model would kind of forget stuff about around the 100,000 word mark. They were able to demonstrate that at 10 million words, it had perfect recall because they changed the math underneath. So expect in 2026, there'll be some substantially big leaps in what models are capable of. There's another paper that talked about how, without getting too technical, imagine that people were, this is actually true. Imagine people were afraid to build tall buildings. So they said, okay, you know what? We're only going to build buildings that are 5 stories tall because it's probably going to collapse after that. So in order to keep building stuff, we need to make buildings wider. And that's kind of been the perspective on how AI models are built and why companies like OpenAI are saying like, yeah, we need to spend $1 trillion on data centers. Well, one of the papers from the conference last week showed it was the AI equivalent of Bessemer steel that said, actually, we can build skyscrapers. Like it's safe to build skyscrapers. And here's how. And suddenly people are going, oh, so we can build a skyscraper that's 1,000 stories tall and it will stand up and it will not fall over on us. And so in this new math, those companies that are investing billions of dollars in data centers, that may turn out to not be a great investment because the math is changing. So there's some really interesting stuff happening that was literally a week ago that we'll expect to see next year. In terms of prompting, again, make sure you're using the basic frameworks that are out there. There's so many of them. This is ours, the Trust Insights one. To ask AI to choose a role, give it an overview of the task, give it a lot of information. The more relevant information, the better, and have it build a work plan. Follow that prompting structure. When we are talking to these tools, remembering that it's not like we're texting our friends, right? When we text our friends, we pick up the phone, we text our friend, they text back, and we kind of responding to the last thing in the chat. If you have what if you had that really weird friend that copied and pasted your entire chat every time they responded to your text? You'd be like, that's annoying. You're really weird. However, that's how AI actually works under the hood. And so when we're building agents, we have to remember this. We have to remember that the models are copy pasting essentially everything that happens in the agent flow, which means agents can get overwhelmed very, very quickly. So we want to make sure that as we're starting to build agents, we want to keep them small and focused. We want to get them to do one thing really well at first and then slowly start to add things together, or better yet, chain them together so that each one does one thing really well. Like this agent's job is just to read a proposal. This agent's job is just to parse out the requirements for a proposal. This agent's job is just to draw up an outline or to retrieve some research. And rather than try and have one mega agent do it all, having little swarms of them doing individual tasks. When it comes to building your prompts, this one sentence changes everything. If you paste this on the end of any given prompt, it will immediately quadruple the benefit of AI to you. Ask me one question at a time until you have enough information to successfully complete the task. You put that into any system you want, any AI system, and it will change the behavior from, oh, let me do this thing, to let me ask you some questions about how to do this thing. It will instantly make everything better. So please make sure that you're doing that. Ask AI, instead of for one answer, ask it for many answers. This is a fairly complicated version of that, but effectively, if you're saying to the machine, hey, here is an email I want to write, here's a blog post I want to draft, or anything along those lines. Instead of saying write a new version of this, say give me 3 different ideas, give me 5 different concepts, give me 7 different ideas. That does 2 things. One, it forces the model to have to look at a wider set of probabilities, which often means more creative ideas. And 2, it preserves your cognitive abilities. Right, decision making is returned to you, the human, which keeps your brain functioning. And the third is AI is better at writing prompts than we are. If you're not getting great results, ask AI literally, using your knowledge of prompt engineering, how would I make this prompt better and generate the result that I intended? If you ask machines to help you with that, they will each do it their own special way, and you can use that to your benefit. For doing things like deep research, which I talked about in the year in review. This is the framework for doing deep research, but it also works really well for if you want a more detailed prompt for any kind of investigation or writing or content. Spending time, what is the task? Who's it for? What's allowed and not allowed? How's it going to be used? What role should the AI play? And critically, what are the expected outputs? When you do deep research on like a competitor, this is the framework to use. And finally, if you haven't been doing this already, build a prompt library, because an agent is predicated on having a prompt inside of it, and which means that if you already have a collection of great prompts, you can turn them into great agents with relatively little struggle. Okay, so that's the basics. A quick recap. The second level is automations. So if we think about AI as a Caesar salad, the prompt really is the recipe. The model and the tools are the utensils, and the data, that's the hard part, is the ingredients, and then the agent or the operator. You are already using some of these tools. Deep research is an example of an agentic AI tool that is an automation. You give it a research prompt and it goes off and it does it and it comes back with stuff. If you're not using deep research and you're paying for at least one AI tool, please start using it. You will be amazed at the quality and the usefulness of the information that comes back. If you've not already started building GPTs or gems or projects or whatever it's called in your particular system, this is where you build a little mini application and you put the prompt that you spent so much time working on perfecting it into this tool, and then the tool does that one thing. So you can say, here's my writing style. I'm going to give you a piece of text. You will always rewrite it in my writing style. Here is a go, no go for an RFP. Here's the RFP. Here's our criteria. Here's our rubric for how we decide this. And then anytime you want to score an RFP for this to go or no go, just drop it into your gem or your GPT. If you want to render an image or make an infographic or do any of these things, you want to be doing this. and build these GPTs and gems. One of the tools that I think is so incredibly powerful, that is a series of mini applications in itself, that is just so good, is Google's free Notebook LM. If you're not familiar with this, Notebook LM is a version of Gemini. It is constrained, however, to one specific unique thing. It can only answer questions from the data you give it, which is super, super valuable because a lot of people correctly have reservations about using AI because it can hallucinate, it can make things up. If we use Notebook LM, it can only answer questions from what we've given it. So let me pull up here. Let me pull up. Let's see. Online learning, deep learning research project, AI operators playbook. Here we are. So this is my YouTube channel for the last year and a half. All the transcripts in here, and there's 8 mini applications that are built right in. I can build mind map. I can build flashcards and quizzes. I can build infographics. I can build slide decks. If you want to try this for fun and have a really interesting experience, go to your LinkedIn profile. Let's pull up LinkedIn. Go to your profile on LinkedIn and then find under the resources tab, download your profile as a PDF. Wait for the PDF to download and then go to Notebook LM, start a brand new notebook, find your LinkedIn profile that we just downloaded. We're going to drop that in as a source. And once that's loaded up here, I'm going to go to the infographic here. I'm going to tap on the pencil icon. And from here, I just make sure I have my audio thing on. I'm going to say, create an infographic in the style of a map, like a Dungeons and Dragons map that shows the career path of Christopher Penn. And if I generate this infographic, it'll take a couple of minutes, but it will render a really cool, interesting infographic of you, right? Of what your career has been like. But this tool is absolutely incredible because it works with the data that you give it only and allows you to generate all sorts of interesting things. I'll give you another example. This is the extremely boring 834-page Federal Student Aid Handbook. It's used in the financial aid industry. It's about as exciting to read as paint drying. It can create things like walkthroughs. This is a walkthrough video of how to apply for a Pell Grant, which is a form of financial aid. But I had to do it in Haitian Creole because in Massachusetts, where I live, 1.2% of the families who have students in public universities here speak Haitian Creole, and approximately 0% of financial aid staff speak Haitian Creole. So the ability to generate high quality, factually correct resources in nearly any language, 86 languages are supported, is a tremendously useful tool. If you've not already played around with Notebook LM, I would strongly encourage you to do so. You could spend a lot of time, a lot of fun with it, and it makes outputs that are quite usable. I do have Kate, my CEO, Katie Robert. This is what her career infographic looks like just from her LinkedIn profile. By the way, this is a good thing to do at the end of the year when you're saying, "Hey, boss, it's time for my annual review." You can put all that information in there. So that is sort of the second level of AI, is those automations and those really cool automation tools. Gems, GPTs, Claude projects, Notebook LM, deep research, super cool stuff. The third level is the agents themselves. This is where we are building systems that do stuff for you. So we are going out of, I have to do the thing, and doing stuff for you. So Google Workspace Studio just announced this 2 weeks ago. This is the ability to build agents. And you can see one of the coolest things in here is it can use a gem. So this particular, you know what? Let's just do a live version of this. I'm going to go into Google Workspace Studio. And this is one called Source of Sources. For anyone who works in PR and knows Peter Shankman's system, where you can sign up for free notices every day, 3 emails a day, saying, here's what journalists want sources to talk about on topics. So I have this to say, check my email when I get an email from Peter. This step here, this step disappeared. So let's add a new step to this. I'm going to run let's see, we're going to ask Gemini and we're going to give Gemini a prompt. I have it stored as a gem previously. So let's edit this. I'm just going to copy my gems contents in here. And I'm going to put in the email body from the email. So when I get an email from Peter, it's going to run this prompt against it. And now I'll move that up and then let's move this down here. And now the third step will be what Gemini creates back, it's going to send it to me. So now I have this agent. I have built this agent. Let's do a test run, see if it works. A test run takes real action. Start. And so it's received an email from Peter the Wednesday afternoon. Oh, we're at capacity. You could do this, and you can do this with just a prompt, which is our level 1, or in a gem, which is our level 2. But I got to be honest, I forget. I forget to do things, right? I was like, oh, I meant to do that. I get 3 of these emails a day from Peter. I'll just wait for the next one. If I had a tool that could do this for me, and so I didn't have to remember it, that would sure be really handy. If I had the ability to see what that looked like. To give you a sense of what the output should look like, it looks like this. It says, hey, here is here are the queries in the most recent issues that are the best fit for me to respond to. Because that's part of the prompt. So instead of me trying to read through this whole thing and answer all of them, I can just have it just tell me which ones I should pay attention to. This is, as of right now, the easiest agent builder in the AI space when it works. It is not, however, the only AI agent builder. Google also has one called Opal, which is a bit more flexible and can do things like read YouTube channels and create infographics and stuff like that. And then you start getting into the power user systems. This is one called N8N, which is a poorly named but awesome product that allows you to chain multiple things together to all kinds of different systems. And critically, you can use a version that runs on your laptop. So it can also be completely private. So an example of N8N, let's see if we have it running. We do. Good. Is for my email newsletter. I can take my email newsletter and through Google Gemini, pass through and get it translated into 5 different languages, and have all these different versions created for me. So I don't have to do that manually anymore. Let's start a new workflow. Suppose I'm going to set up a manual trigger here. Suppose I have an app of some kind, say like HubSpot. Right? I have a HubSpot or a Salesforce instance or any of the, my finger's going to get tired scrolling here. Look at all the things that can trigger an agent flow. Like, hey, when a new contact comes in, I want to see get recently created updated contacts. And that could do something like tie an AI agent to it and have it do things like pick a model, run a prompt, say like, how likely is this contact to even do business with us? And it allows you to visually create AI agents. And this is not the only game in town. Zapier, the company Zapier has this. Company called Make has this. OpenAI even has their own, which is absolutely terrible and completely unhelpful. And there are there are very specific tailored apps. This is one called Anti-Gravity from Google that use coding tools, but you can use them for non-coding purposes. This is an example of one where I took 10 different academic papers about generative engine optimization, which is the latest buzzword term for or GEO, AEO, whatever. Um, and I did an analysis on it to figure out, okay, well, what's real and what's not based on academic papers really published. But agents are where things are going. If there's a single message for 2026, it is that we have enough AI. All of the AI models now are smarter than they've ever been. They're smarter than humans. We have enough. We now have to build the rest of the car. Right? We have to create the harness around the AI that connects to the systems we care about. Some vendors like Google are already starting to do it, but of course, no surprise, you have to be a Google Workspace customer for it to be useful. Microsoft, I would expect, I hope, would get to the point where they're going to build it into Copilot. Not sure, but everyone is racing towards getting these capabilities. So your remit as an AEC professional, in whatever role you're in, is to figure out where do agents fit in? What repetitive tasks do you do now with AI that you would want to completely hand off to the machine, especially when they're tasks that maybe aren't super high value. For example, one of the first agents that I built was to write my expense reports, right? Because that is not a task that I feel like doing. I procrastinate. And it's not a ton of value. It's important because, the financial health of the business is important, but I don't like doing it. And so having an agent that just picks up my receipts and just does expense report for me, so useful. So this is what to think, what to pay attention to. I saw Sushil saying that they released him in at Ignite. Yeah, I haven't. I have on my list to review the stuff from Ignite. I haven't gotten there yet. So questions. We have 8 minutes left. We can handle questions. I did see Amanda asking about what's on the shelf.
They were asking about the bumblebee looking thing with the green wings behind you.
So this is IBM's mascot, Rebus the bee. You'll see this in a lot of IBM's collateral. They have sort of an emoji version of their logo, and this is the one that you'll see in their official branding. But they have several versions of Rebus.
Team, any questions for Christopher? Shelf or AI or otherwise? Don't be shy.
So Amanda, what if any agents are in Joist AI, or what's coming?
So I don't want to give away what's coming. I'm going to make everybody sign up for the webinar in January. But our workspaces tool that I was talking about earlier is largely run on agents, and that's definitely where we're going in 2026 as well. So you're exactly right.
Yep. I see Chris asking, there are a bunch of AI certifications in marketing. How do we select and weed through the noise? Yeah, there are a bunch of certifications. I pay attention to none of them. Well, not because there's any that are bad necessarily, but because um, all the certifications teach you the basics, and that's good. But the value of these things really starts to be in the use cases and stuff like that. And most of the certifications, they don't stay up to date as much as you would want. And that's a consequence of the field. The field is changing so darn fast that it's impossible for any, pre-programmed curriculum to stay modern and up to date. Kelly asking, is Notebook LM open loop? Open loop in what sense? Kelly, you'll need to clarify that one. um, the James, going back to the hiring graph, how do you best position yourself if you're on the new year, hire younger end of that graph for long-term success? Here's the thing. Hiring right now, there's a whole thing from Greenhouse that 2 weeks ago. Hiring is an absolute disaster right now. For a couple reasons. On the candidate side, between ghost jobs and different positions appearing, it's very difficult for candidates to find anything real. And then on the employer side, everybody's resume now reads exactly the same because everyone that cousins put their resume through Chat GPT. So there's absolutely no way to look from a documentation alone whether someone is even remotely qualified for position. So the number one thing that you can do as a professional at all is to build your human network with other people so that you can, so that people can vouch for you, is the easiest way to say it. Oh, Kelly's saying, Notebook LM has its own privacy policy, and Google says they explicitly do not train on your data for any version of Notebook LM, including the free one. Also, unless you share the notebook with the world, if you intentionally hit share and say open it up to everybody, its data is not shared out there. So that's that. It is definitely one of the safer tools for using with AI. But back to James's question, build your network is really important. Be skillful at these tools. So we have said for a while. I used to say, all the time, and back in 2023, which is like the Jurassic era when it comes to AI, that AI won't take your job. A person skilled at AI will take your job. That is still somewhat true, but now AI will also take your job if your job is a collection of relatively easy tasks. For someone who is junior in your career, the remit is to get really good at this stuff so that you are the one who is left operating the machines. Because if you're at a company that has 50 people doing content, that company can get away with five using AI to do all of the first drafts and things. And those five people are act as managers of AI in the same way that you would act as managers of people. So your remit is to become one of those five remaining managers. And it will also depend on the kind of company you work for. Um, so a company that is progressive, that values its employees, actually values them, will upskill you and or find other work for you to do. A company that is regressive, that is profit focused rather than people focused, will lay people off as fast as possible to boost their margins. So it's not a universal statement that could say, explain how AI is going to be used at your company. It's going to depend on who you work for. One of the easiest benchmarks for that is to see how your company already handles things like outsourcing. If your company's outsourcing work as fast as possible to the cheapest labor possible, then yeah, they're going to do that to employees with AI too. If a company really invests in its people, genuinely invests in its people, you can expect that they will find ways to amplify those people. They may not hire as many because you can get more power out of the people you already have, but they're not also not just going to fire everybody as well. Sergio asking, what's a good agent platform today or agent framework? That's a very deep question because there's a ton of frameworks like A2A and stuff like that. The one that I would suggest for people who are not hardcore coders to start with, if you're in Google Workspace and it's working, Workspace Studio is the easiest one to get started with. If you're not in Google Workspace, Microsoft Copilot Flow, which is part of Copilot Studio, is the one to get started with. It's a little harder to use, but as a Microsoft shop, and if your company is paid for the upgrade, Copilot Studio is actually really decent and it has a bunch of different connectors. For an agnostic platform, I would recommend N8N. I think that's the most flexible. It has the most built-in connectors to the most different systems out there. And I think that would be a good starting point. I do see a question in the chat for Carmen. Am I doing a 2-day AI course for SMPS next year? Stay tuned. This is going to be some interesting stuff. And I know our friends at Joist will be working with them next year, but also I think we're going to see our friends at Joist at some of the SMPS events as well.
That is correct. Yep, we look forward to being heavily involved in the AEC AI or SMPS next year.
Mm-hmm.
Crew, I know we've only got a 1 minute here. Are there any topics, and go ahead and throw them into chat, that you'd like Chris to talk about on our world models? Okay. Anything else, team? Again, we're we're coming up with topics and talking points for 2026, so we want to make sure we get them covered for you.
This might be leading the witness, but one that has been a ton of stuff has been on optimizing your marketing for AI and some of these. As Sue says, how to prepare for the future. Yeah, that's definitely yeah. What about GEO? There we go.
There it is. There it is. So
Can I give folks a very quick sneak preview, Amanda?
Absolutely, 100%.
We're trying to build this. It does not exist yet. It's not in production. You can't buy it. It's not for sale because it barely works. but we are decomposing the way that Google's models make decisions on how they write queries so that we can say, like, here's why a company like Joist would or would not be included in the way that the AI overviews in particular and Google's deep research functions. So as this is going to be part of GEO to determine like how do these tools make their decisions, and then how do you function as a brand to get seen in them.
Real quick though, Chris, before you jump into that, I think a lot of this team is probably going, "What is GEO?" So
GEO
let's take
is
a
a
step back for a
stupid
second.
acronym. Is a stupid acronym that someone from Princeton coined 2 years ago called generative engine optimization, a play on SEO, search engine optimization. I despise it, but we're kind of stuck with it.
So, team, kind of what we're thinking about is, and I know a lot of you, I know we focus on proposals and everything, but a lot of you are manning the other side of the house on more generalized traditional marketing, your content, your website, all of that good stuff, SEO. And so, essentially, where is SEO heading now that everybody is starting to use AI and chat? So that's one of the topics we've been discussing with Chris. Is this something that people would be interested in learning more about? To Chris's point, it's still kind of up in the air. It's still being figured out. Chris is, one of those minds trying to figure it out. We can, yeah, go ahead, Chris. Show them what you got.
Yeah. So this, like I said, this software is not in production, cannot be bought because it barely works. But it follows. It's based on code that Google released this summer. So it's following their code for how their tools make decisions for returning answers in AI overviews. We were doing this and exploring like how does Joist show up within this, and Joist is in there as you know. The question was. What is the best proposal management software for AEC, but the ability to decompose and see how Google thinks is where we think there's factual information to be had.
All right. Well, team, I know we're at the top of the hour. Wanted to thank everybody for joining us today. Christopher, again, as always, it's a pleasure. We learned so much and we really appreciate it. Everyone, I will be sending out today's webinar recording as well as slides. Feel free to share it with your team. We'll also get it up on YouTube for you. And if you guys need anything else, absolutely let us know. Respond. If you guys have ideas for future webinars or questions for Chris, absolutely let us know. And we will see you on next month's webinar. So
Yeah,
thanks,
happy
everybody.
holidays, everyone. Happy New Year, and see you on the next one.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye-bye.